My 70th birthday should have been a day of warmth, but instead it feels like a test of endurance. The dining room glows with golden light from the chandelier, yet I sense the shadows creeping between us. In front of me sits a small wrapped box, its paper already faded as if it had waited years for this very moment. I pick it up, and the weight is oddly familiar. When I peel the paper away, an old brass key falls into my hand. At first glance, it is nothing special, scratched slightly tarnished, but when I tilt it toward the light, I notice a tiny slip of tape stuck on the side. On it, in faded ink, is handwriting I know too well, my late wife's loops and strokes. She has been gone for 3 years, yet here she is, again speaking to me silently from the grave. Around me, laughter carries on, but it feels distant, muted. My son sits across the table, his eyes cold, his smile forced. For a decade, I raised him alone after his mother's illness consumed her last strength. 20 years of sacrifice, yet in this moment the gap between us feels wider than the table that separates us. My hand tightens around the key, and I feel its edges press into my skin like a quiet warning. What does it open? Why now? And why would it appear here on this day? A sudden hush breaks through the noise as my son clears his throat. He stands, lifts his glass, and with a practiced smile announces, "Father, this will be your last night in this house." The words cut sharper than any blade. My heart stumbles. My breath catches, and I glance again at the key. Somewhere, somehow, my wife had prepared for this betrayal. I just don't know how. Not yet. And that was only the beginning. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The night doesn't end with my son's announcement. His words still hang in the air, bitter as stale wine. The family tries to continue, but laughter no longer flows easily. I notice the chair beside me, my wife's old seat left vacant, though we had guests enough to fill it. It stands like a ghostly reminder, polished wood gleaming in the candlelight, waiting for someone who will never return. My granddaughter glances at it nervously, then back at me, as if she too feels the presence. I shift uneasily, my hand still clutching the brass key. That empty seat tells a story of love, of sacrifice, and now of absence. Tonight it feels less like a missing chair and more like an omen. The silence grows heavier. A cousin tries to toast, but his voice cracks. My son, perhaps hoping to assert his dominance, clinks his glass against his wife's and avoids my eyes. He thinks he has already won. Yet the room itself betrays him, the space beside me, refusing to be filled, the void too loud to ignore. I take a slow breath, forcing calm. I remind myself that silence has its own way of speaking. That empty chair might just be louder than his cruel words. But I soon realize that wasn't the worst of it. When the guests finally drift away, leaving only fragments of laughter and half-finished plates, I retreat to my room. My hand trembles as I slip the brass key from my pocket, placing it gently on the desk. Its dull shine under the lamplight makes it look older than the house itself. No tag, no ring, just that fading scrap of tape with my wife's unmistakable handwriting. I run my thumb over the ink, tracing the curves of her letters. She always wrote with a certain flourish, looping the Y, as though every word needed to dance. I can almost hear her voice again, the way she would call me stubborn old oak, half teasing, half loving. My chest tightens. Why would she leave me this? Now, years after she was gone. Keys carry secrets. A locksmith once told me every key has a twin somewhere out there. A lock waits. My mind races a bank box, a hidden drawer. Maybe even the little seaside cottage we used to visit, though I thought I sold it decades ago. The house is quiet, but my thoughts are loud. My son believes he holds all the power tonight. He doesn't know about the key, about the message that still whispers from beyond the grave. I press the cold metal to my palm, promising myself I'll find the lock it belongs to. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. Morning light creeps through the curtains, soft and pale, yet it does nothing to ease the weight pressing on my chest. I sit at the edge of my bed, the brass key resting on the nightstand, glinting faintly as if demanding attention. 3 years, it has been 3 years since my wife passed, and 3 years since my son and I last spoke with anything resembling warmth. The distance began subtly, first shorter phone calls, then missed dinners, eventually silence stretched like a canyon. When we did speak, it was clipped transactional, as though I were a stranger renting a room in his house instead of the man who raised him. Somewhere along the way, love turned into cold civility. I remember once, not long after the funeral, standing in the kitchen with him. I offered tea, but he said he had no time, his eyes fixed on his phone. The scent of my wife's favorite jasmine blend filled the room, but he didn't notice. It was then I realized grief had not bound us. It had split us apart. This morning, as I stare at the key, I wonder if she had known this would happen. Perhaps she left behind more than memories. Perhaps she foresaw betrayal. A shiver runs through me. The clock ticks loudly in the silence, and I feel the house itself waiting, listening. My son's footsteps echo faintly downstairs, heavy and impatient. Silence has its own way of speaking. The dining room still carries the faint smell of last night's feast, but the warmth has vanished. My son stands by the window, staring out as if the world beyond is more important than the father behind him. His wife sits at the table, scrolling on her phone, lips curved in a smirk she doesn't bother to hide. I take my seat slowly, my joints stiff but my mind sharper than I let on. The brass key is hidden in my pocket, its weight steady against my leg. I sense today will demand more strength than I thought I had left. Without ceremony, my son turns to me. His voice is calm, rehearsed. "Father," he says, "I think it's time you moved out. This house, it's not yours anymore." The words hang in the air, heavy, deliberate. He doesn't look at me. He looks past me as if I've already vanished. My chest tightens, but I steady my breathing. I've been preparing for rejection all my life, though never expected it from him. I want to ask why now, but I don't. Instead, I glance at the empty chair where my wife once sat. Her absence screams louder than my son's cruelty. My daughter-in-law finally looks up, her eyes cold. "It's for the best," she adds, as if that settles everything. I grip the edge of the table, forcing myself to remain silent. I will not give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. I push my chair back, the legs scraping against the wooden floor, and prepare to leave the room without a word. My pride may be battered, but I refuse to let it shatter in front of them. As I turn toward the hallway, a soft hand tugs at my sleeve. It's my granddaughter. Her wide eyes dart nervously toward her parents, then back at me. She leans close, her breath barely audible against my ear. "Grandpa, don't argue, just go. Tonight isn't safe." Her words sink like ice into my veins. Not safe. What could she mean? She's only 12 yet. Her tone carries the urgency of someone who's seen too much. I glance down at her trembling fingers, then back at the cold stares of my son and his wife. They don't notice her whisper, or perhaps they don't care. I nod slowly, covering her small hand with mine as though I'm simply steadying myself. Her eyes glisten, a silent plea hidden behind them. Then she slips away back into the shadows of the corridor. My heart pounds. It isn't just rejection anymore, something darker lingers here. The brass key in my pocket presses harder against me, as if reminding me it holds answers my son would never want me to find. I straighten my back, forcing calm into my steps. I may be walking out, but I'm not walking defeated. Not yet. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. The night air greets me like a slap, sharp, cold, and merciless. I step onto the porch with only my coat and the brass key pressing against my thigh. Behind me, the door shuts with a finality that echoes louder than any goodbye. For the first time in decades, I am leaving this house not as its master, not even as its guest, but as an exile. The street is quiet, lined with bare trees whose branches claw at the sky. My breath clouds in the cold, each exhale a reminder of how alone I am. I walk slowly, not because my body demands it, but because I don't yet know where to go. The city feels both familiar and strange, every corner carrying fragments of a life I once built. At the corner, a stray dog noses through an overturned trash bin. It reminds me of a folk saying my wife used to repeat, "Even a dog guards the hand that feeds it." I chuckle bitterly. Blood ties, it seems, are weaker than hunger. Still, humiliation isn't the only thing that walks with me tonight. There's also fear. My granddaughter's whisper lingers in my ears. Not safe. Did she mean danger from words, or from something more sinister? I pause under a flickering street lamp, pulling out the key once more. Its ridges gleam faintly stubborn against the dark. If I can find where it belongs, maybe I can also find why my wife left it behind. But silence wraps itself around me, and even the night holds its breath. Silence has its own way of speaking. I walk past the hedges that divide my son's house from the old brick home next door. The porch light flicks on, and there stands Mr. Hahn, my neighbor of 30 years. He leans against the railing pipe, and hand smoke curling upward like pale threads in the night. His eyes catch mine, steady and knowing. "You're out late," he says softly, though his words feel less like a greeting and more like a probe. I try to wave it off with a thin smile, but my silence betrays me. He studies me for a long moment before lowering his voice. "Your boy, he's planning something. I've seen men like him before. Don't ignore the signs. The chill deepens not from the air, but from his certainty. Mr. Han is a man who notices details others overlook. Years ago, he once spotted a gas leak in my kitchen before I even smelled it. His warnings are never idle. I tighten my grip around the key in my pocket. His gaze lingers, then shifts deliberately to my hand as if he already senses I'm holding something important. "Whatever you're keeping," he murmurs, "protect it. Don't let him take it." I nod, but my throat is too tight for words. The smoke from his pipe drifts toward me, carrying the faint scent of oak and tobacco, my wife's favorite, oddly enough. It stings my eyes. I turn away, my heart heavier than before. If even the neighbor suspects danger, then the betrayal runs deeper than I feared. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. Sleep doesn't come easily that night. I lie awake on the stiff couch in a small motel room, staring at the ceiling fan's slow, uneven spin. Each creak of its blades pulls me further into the past. I remember the hospital room, the sterile smell of disinfectant, and my wife's frail hand wrapped around mine. Her voice was weak, but her words carried the weight of iron. "Promise me," she whispered, "you'll protect what matters. Even if our son forgets, you must remember." Her eyes searched mine with a desperate plea, as though she already knew betrayal would follow grief. I nodded back then, but I never asked what exactly I was to protect. Our house, our savings, or perhaps something deeper, values, dignity, legacy. Now, with the brass key pressed against my chest, I realized she had left me a path, a silent map. This key isn't just metal. It's her voice still echoing, reminding me of a vow I never fully understood. A memory surfaces the summer of our 35th anniversary. She tucked something into a locked box and laughed when I asked what it was. "One day you'll know," she said, kissing my cheek. That day, it seems, has arrived far later than I ever imagined. The hum of the fan fades into silence, and I stare at the shadows on the ceiling, wondering how many secrets my wife carried alone. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. Morning comes gray and heavy, as if the sky itself carries secrets it refuses to spill. I leave the motel early, unwilling to sit with stale air and restless thoughts. My feet carry me back toward the old part of town, where memories cling to every brick and shutter. I find myself at our first house, the one my wife and I bought before our son was even born. It stands abandoned now, shutters sagging, ivy creeping along the walls. I don't know why I came here, only that something pulled me. Inside, dust lies thick on the floorboards and cobwebs tremble with each draft. I walk toward the desk in the corner, an old oak piece my wife adored. She kept every bill, every letter, every diary entry tucked neatly in its drawers. With a slow pull, I open the middle drawer, and there it is, a sealed envelope tied with a thin red thread. The handwriting across the front freezes me in place. It's hers. Even faded, I'd recognize those loops anywhere. My breath catches. 3 years she's been gone, yet here she is, reaching out again. I hesitate, fingers trembling. My wife believed in small symbols, red thread she used to say, "connects destiny." Finding this envelope now feels less like chance and more like fate. I slip it into my coat pocket beside the brass key. 2 clues, both from her, both waiting for me to understand. The silence of the house presses close, as though it too wants me to open it. But I soon realize that wasn't the worst of it. I leave the abandoned house with the envelope burning against my chest. Each step feels heavier, as if the weight of her message grows with the morning sun. The streets are quieter here, lined with shuttered shops and fading signs. I make my way toward the lawyer's office, a place I had been avoiding for months. Mr. Choi, my lawyer, has been with our family for decades. He handled our will after my wife's passing, but something always seemed unfinished. He had asked me to come in weeks ago, hinting there were loose ends my wife had left behind. At the time, I brushed it off, too tired of paperwork, too tired of grief. Now, holding the envelope and the brass key, I realize the delay may have been my greatest mistake. When I arrive, the blinds are half closed, his office dim. Mr. Choi looks up, surprise flickering in his eyes. "I was beginning to think you'd never come," he says, motioning me to sit. His desk is cluttered with files, but one folder lies at the center, marked with my wife's name. Before he opens it, I place the envelope on the table. His brows knit together, and he exhales slowly, almost relieved. "So, you found it." I freeze. "Found it?" His tone suggests he already knew it existed. Perhaps my wife had entrusted him with more than I ever imagined. The room falls silent, filled only with the faint ticking of his clock. I brace myself, sensing that what lies in that folder could unravel everything I thought I knew about my family. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. The envelope lies between us like a live coal, daring me to touch it. Mr. Choi adjusts his glasses, waiting patiently, but my hands refuse to move. The red thread tied around the flap feels too personal, too sacred. Breaking it would mean crossing into a truth I may not be ready for. My wife was deliberate with her symbols. She once told me that red thread binds fate, that in old folktales, it connects those destined to meet even across lifetimes. To see it here wrapped around her final words to me makes my chest ache with both longing and dread. I slide the envelope closer, tracing her handwriting once more. "Do not open until you are ready," it says in her elegant loops. Ready. How does one ever know? Mr. Choi clears his throat. "Your wife was wise," he says quietly. "She left safeguards, not just for property, but for you." His words only deepen the mystery. I nod, but tuck the envelope back into my coat pocket the way a man might sheath a blade too sharp to wield. The brass key presses against it, two pieces of the same puzzle. Somewhere a lock waits, somewhere an answer sleeps. I rise from my chair, thanking Mr. Choi, though my voice shakes. His eyes linger on me as if he knows the storm I'm walking into. Silence has its own way of speaking. That night I cannot sleep. The brass key and the sealed envelope feel like twin weights in my pocket, tugging me towards something unseen. By morning, my restlessness drives me back into the city. I wander through familiar streets until my steps slow before a row of storage units, their rusted doors lined up like silent sentinels. My breath catches. Years ago, my wife and I rented one of these units when we downsized the house. I had nearly forgotten. Could this be it? My fingers close around the key, its teeth biting into my skin. I approach the manager, an elderly man with cloudy eyes, who squints at me before nodding. "Unit 47, he mutters, flipping through yellowed papers. "Paid in full all these years." His tone carries quiet surprise, as though rent had been covered without pause, even after my wife's passing. My pulse quickens, so she had planned this all along. The lock on Unit 47 is old but sturdy. I slide the brass key in, and it fits with unsettling ease. The click echoes louder than I expect, like a verdict delivered. With a trembling hand, I push the door upward. Dust swirls in the sunlight, unveiling stacks of boxes, an old trunk, and something larger draped beneath a faded sheet. The silence inside is heavy waiting. Whatever my wife left here, she had hidden it carefully, trusting only me to find it. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The door groans as it rolls fully open, and the smell of age greets me, dust paper and something faintly metallic. I step inside, the gravel crunching under my shoes. Sunlight filters through a crack above, spilling across the floor in a narrow beam, cutting the darkness like a knife. Stacks of boxes line the walls, each marked with my wife's handwriting. Recipes, old tax records, even holiday decorations from decades past. But at the center of the unit rests a single object covered by a sheet. The fabric is stiff with dust, its surface gray and brittle. My breath slows as I tug at the corner, releasing a cloud that makes me cough. Beneath it stands a metal chest, waist high, the kind I once saw in a museum, reinforced, riveted heavy. Its surface is scarred by time, but the lock remains unbroken. My brass key gleams in my hand as if eager to meet its match. I kneel, pressing the key into the slot. It fits perfectly, turning with a reluctant grind before the lid loosens. A long silence stretches, as though the room itself holds its breath. I don't open it yet. Instead, I sit back on my heels, staring at the chest, feeling the weight of my wife's foresight. She had hidden something here, something meant only for me. The dust settles, but the silence lingers heavier than before. Silence has its own way of speaking. I press both hands against the lid and lift. The hinges protest with a long metallic groan. Then the chest yawns open to reveal neat stacks of files and leather-bound folders. No jewels, no gold, no treasure chest fantasy, just paper. But paper has its own power, sometimes sharper than steel. The first folder I pull free is thick, wrapped in a ribbon that crumbles at my touch. Inside are property deeds, each stamped and notarized, each bearing my wife's steady signature. My breath hitches as I scan the names: apartments, farmland, even a small lakeside cabin I thought we'd sold years ago. I sit down heavily on a wooden crate, stunned. She had quietly gathered all this, never once boasting, never once hinting at its extent. My son, so eager to cast me aside, doesn't know half of what she left behind. He sees only this house. He thinks banishing me will strip me of everything. A line from a financial article I once read flashes into my mind. "Wealth whispered is wealth most enduring." She must have known. She must have prepared for this betrayal. I trace her signature on one of the deeds, my throat tightening. These papers aren't just assets. They're proof she trusted me to guard what mattered, to keep dignity alive when our own blood turned cold. Still, a chill creeps along my spine. If this is only the first layer, what else did she hide beneath? But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. I set the property deeds aside, my hands trembling. Beneath the first stack of folders lies a smaller bundle tied not with ribbon, but with a length of black cord. My wife's touch is here too, always symbolic, always deliberate. Red for fate, black for warning. My heart beats faster as I untie the knot. Inside are letters. Not to me, but to him, our son. Each sealed, none delivered. The handwriting carries the same elegance, but the tone is firmer, almost stern. She wrote of responsibility, of gratitude, of family honor. And in each one she pleaded for him to remember kindness above greed. My throat tightens as I read. These were not simply reminders. They were warnings she must have known he'd ignore. She left them for me to discover, as if to say, I tried. I tried to reach him before it was too late. At the bottom of the stack rests a single, heavier envelope. Unlike the others, this one bears my name in bold strokes. The seal is intact, pressed with the faint imprint of a rose, her personal emblem. My hand hesitates, tracing the outline, afraid of what truths it might hold. A creak from outside jolts me. I freeze, listening. Footsteps scrape against gravel. Someone is near the storage unit. My pulse spikes as I clutch the envelope to my chest. The chest may hold wealth, but this letter holds something greater and far more dangerous. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. The footsteps outside grow louder, stopping just beyond the thin metal wall of the storage unit. My breath shallows. Then a sharp rap on the door. Father. The voice is unmistakable, my son. Cold-clipped, carrying the same authority he once reserved for business meetings. I slide the envelope into my coat pocket and shut the chest with a thud, dust rising like smoke. My hand hovers over the key, still lodged in the lock. The door jerks open before I can move. Sunlight slices in, framing his figure. His face is drawn, but his eyes burn with entitlement. He steps inside, surveying the room, the chest, the scattered documents. So it's true, he says, his lips curling. Mother left you more than the house, and you thought you could keep it from me. I rise slowly, forcing calm into my voice. She left what she chose. Not everything was meant for you. He laughs, short and bitter. Not meant for me. I'm her blood. I'm your son. Do you really think you deserve to decide what belongs to this family? For a moment, the storage unit feels like a courtroom, dust motes, floating in beams of light like suspended verdicts. My grip tightens around the letter in my pocket. His arrogance blinds him. He doesn't realize the most important truth remains unopened. I meet a stare, unflinching. Not everything that's inherited can be claimed. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. My son's words drip with venom, but I refuse to let them rattle me. I steady my breathing, drawing strength from the envelope pressing against my chest. Instead of answering his fury with anger, I choose silence first. It unnerves him more than any raised voice could. Finally, I speak slowly, evenly. You think power is in what you grab, but true power is in what you protect. His jaw tightens, his eyes narrowing. He expects me to plead, to bargain, to crumble under the weight of his disdain. Instead, I let the quiet stretch between us. In that pause, he shifts uncomfortably, as though my stillness is a mirror he doesn't want to face. He takes a step closer, snatching one of the property deeds from the open chest. These are mine by right, he snaps. You're too old to handle any of this. I'll make better use of it. I shake my head. You see only paper, not the cost. Every line here is written in your mother's sacrifice. Do you think she left them for greed? For a flicker of a moment, doubt crosses his face. But then it's gone, replaced by the same arrogance that banished me from my own home. Inside, I feel a strange calm. He doesn't know about the unopened letter. He doesn't know the brass key has already unlocked more than a chest. His ignorance is my shield for now. Silence has its own way of speaking. 2 days later, I sit in Mr. Choi's office once more, the chest's documents spread neatly across his desk. My son barged in behind me, uninvited but determined. He paces like a wolf in a cage, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. These assets belong to me, he insists, slamming a fist against the table. My mother would never have hidden them unless she wanted me to inherit them. Mr. Choi doesn't flinch. He steeples his fingers, calm as a surgeon before a delicate cut. Your mother's instructions were clear, he replies. These were entrusted to your father, and they remain his until certain conditions are met. The word conditions freezes my son mid-step. His face pales slightly, though he tries to mask it with a sneer. What conditions? I stay silent, letting Mr. Choi's words carry the weight. The lawyer opens a folder, sliding a sealed document across the desk. Your mother foresaw conflict. She specified that only one who honors family with respect and care can rightfully inherit. That determination rests with this letter addressed solely to your father. My son's eyes dart to my coat pocket, suspicion burning there. He doesn't know I already hold the letter unopened, waiting. The room grows tense air, thick with unspoken truths. Even the ticking clock seems hesitant, each second dragging longer than the last. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. The sealed letter rests on Mr. Choi's desk, its red thread unbroken, its wax seal faint but intact. My son's gaze clings to it like a starving man eyeing bread. His breath comes quicker, though he tries to hide it. Mr. Choi clears his throat. Your wife wrote this with deliberate care. It contains the final condition of her will. Until it is opened and read aloud, nothing else can be decided. My hands hover above the envelope, but I hesitate. My wife's handwriting feels alive beneath my fingertips. Once broken, the seal cannot be restored, and the truth inside cannot be ignored. Open it, my son snaps, his voice sharp with impatience. Let's end this charade. I look at him. Truly look at him. The boy I raised is gone, replaced by a man whose greed erodes every trace of love. For a fleeting second, I wonder if my wife foresaw this change, if that's why she wrapped her warnings in thread and ink. I slide a finger under the wax. The seal cracks, releasing a faint scent of rose oil, her center trace preserved in paper. My chest tightens. Slowly, I unfold the letter. Mr. Choi leans forward, and the room falls into absolute silence. My son's knuckles whiten as he grips the chair. The first line makes my blood run cold. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. My eyes scan the first lines of her letter, each word burning into me as though my wife speaks from beyond the grave. To my husband and only to him, these properties, these savings, these tokens of my life's work belong not to those who grasp, but to those who protect. Our son must never inherit unless he proves he can honor, not consume. The room holds its breath. My son lunges forward, trying to snatch the letter from my hands. But Mr. Choi's firm voice slices through the tension. Sit down. His command is sharp, and for once my son falters. His face flushes crimson, then drains to a sickly pale. This is manipulation, he shouts. She didn't mean that. You're twisting her words. I hold the paper higher, my voice calm but steady. These are her words written in her hand, not mine, not the lawyer's, hers. He slams his fist on the desk, rattling the inkwell and scattering a few documents. His breath comes ragged, his body trembling with fury. All my life you kept me small, he growls, and now even in death she chooses you over me. The outburst leaves a hollow silence in its wake. His chest heaves, his eyes wet, not with grief, but with rage. I see him breaking not from loss, but from the shattering of entitlement. And in that silence I realize the battle is no longer about paper or deeds. It is about the soul of a family already splintered. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. The argument spreads like fire through dry grass. My son's shouting draws others into the lawyer's office, relatives who had been waiting outside, cousins, even my daughter-in-law with her ever-present smirk. Within moments, the small room swells with voices, each carrying its own demand, its own claim. This isn't fair, my daughter-in-law spits, folding her arms. We built our lives here. We deserve the inheritance. A cousin shakes his head. Deserve? You haven't cared for him in years. You pushed him out of his own house. The sides form quickly invisible lines, carving the family into camps. Some stand behind my son, drawn by promises of wealth. Others, quieter but firmer, side with me, recognizing my wife's intention in every word of her letter. The weight of betrayal hangs thick in the air, and even the walls seem to absorb the bitterness. I watch in silence, the letter trembling slightly in my hand. My wife must have known this would happen, that truth divides before it heals. In one of her old journals, she wrote, "Family is like glass, it reflects light, but when cracked, it cuts." The noise crescendos a storm of accusations and defenses until Mr. Choi slams his hand on the desk. Enough. The letter is binding. The condition is clear. If you cannot honor respect, you inherit nothing. The room falls silent, but the fracture remains. Blood has turned against blood, and the divide is now permanent. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The storm of voices fades, leaving only the sound of my own breath and the soft shuffle of papers on Mr. Choi's desk. My son slumps into a chair, pale and trembling, the fight drained from him. He glares at me, but behind the anger I see something else, fear. He knows the letter has cut deeper than any argument ever could. I rise slowly, steadying myself with the edge of the table. The brass key feels warm in my pocket, as though it has carried me here to this very moment. With deliberate calm, I reach into my coat and pull it out. The room leans forward, curiosity replacing fury. Wordlessly, I set the key on the desk, then lay down the deed to the lakeside cabin, the farmland, the apartment, all in my name, untouched by my son's grasp. His face crumples as he realizes the truth. He cannot undo what his mother bound with foresight. I do not raise my voice. I do not gloat. Instead, I speak softly. This isn't about what I gain. It's about what you lost the moment you chose greed over family. The silence that follows is heavier than any outburst. My son lowers his head, and for once he has no reply. I collect the key and documents, slipping them back into my coat. My wife's presence feels near, her rose-scented ink, her looping handwriting, her wisdom echoing in this quiet victory. But even as relief brushes over me, I know this story is not yet finished. Silence has its own way of speaking. That night I sit by the window of my small rented room, the city lights flickering like distant stars. The brass key rests on the table beside me, no longer just an object, but a reminder of everything my wife foresaw, everything she tried to protect. The letter lies folded neatly in my pocket, her words etched into me more deeply than ink ever could. I think of my son, the boy I once carried on my shoulders, the man now hollowed by greed. My heart aches, but not with anger. Betrayal leaves scars, yes, but it also teaches truths we wish we'd never learn. He wanted ownership. What he lost was something far greater: trust, respect, and the bond of family. In my wife's wisdom, I see a final gift. She taught me that love isn't measured by inheritance, but by dignity carried forward. And tonight, though the house behind me is closed, I feel strangely at peace. I whisper into the quiet, as though she can still hear me. I kept the promise. The silence answers back, gentle and whole. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it touched you, please subscribe and continue with the next story in the playlist.